Today we're going to discuss the COVID-19 health pandemic that swept across the nation and how it affected Lacey Public Schools, how it affected our students, our staff, and the town.
A growing number of schools across the tri-state area continue to either cancel classes or move to remote learning.
Once again, all schools throughout the state of New Jersey will be closing on the 18th.
Today, I'm announcing that our public schools will remain closed through at least Friday, May 15th.
During the month of March, there was a lot of uncertainty with regard to the coronavirus. How would it affect states across the country? It just happened to be that New Jersey and the tri-state area was the most affected. During the time, we discussed with administration how we would handle and prepare for such a health pandemic. It wasn't easy. There was a lot of tough discussions. We decided, with the cooperation of the Board of Education, to close schools for an extended period of time. Other districts closed for 2 weeks. We extended that. We felt that in the best interest of our students' health and safety and our staff, that we should take a further extended approach. No one would know, though, that in the end, school would be closed for the rest of the year.
I had hoped that we could get back to a sense of normal by allowing our children to return to the schools they love and to be with their friends and classmates. But the reality is that we cannot safely reopen our schools to provide students and families or faculty and staff the confidence needed to allow for a return to in-person instruction.
During the initial stages of the school shutdown, there was much anxiety and uncertainty of how departments would run virtually in a new paradigm of education that was unprecedented. Today, we're going to discuss with department heads how they approached the challenges that they faced and what do their departments look like now in a virtual educational setting. Although all departments are crucial in an educational setting, there is none more important than instruction. And right now we're going to talk to the two supervisors of Lacey Township Public Schools, Michelle Amos and Will Zielinski. So when we first started instruction for elementary students during this pandemic, a lot of it was paper handouts, right? Because we didn't really prepare for anything like this. No one ever prepared for this. What is it after that initial stage, though? What does virtual learning look like now for elementary students?
There was a big time investment initially in making sure that all of our students had access to the internet, access to devices. A lot of contact was made by the teachers and principals and supervisors getting those things delivered. Then we were transitioning to the Google Classroom, which some of our teachers had a lot of experience with and some have had minimal, so they had a learning curve themselves. And then it was, I think our third and fourth graders were pretty well prepared to transition into the Google Classroom, but our little ones, there was a big learning curve for them as well. So there was a lot of time invested in getting them familiar with the classroom, getting their parents familiar with the classroom, being able to access the different resources and going from there. I think we continue to transition. They started out simple, just giving them assignments that would give them some exposure. And now, for the most part, teachers are doing Google Meets with at least some of their students who are able to join them. I know they're spending a tremendous amount of time online because they're accommodating parents and students as best they can at the hours that they're available to join them and get instruction.
And with report cards, I know that we didn't do a letter grade per se, but how did we accommodate that?
So we just felt like with the transition to online learning, it looked different than anything the children were used to in the classroom, and we really needed to talk to the parents and talk about where the students were at that moment in time, and where we could improve things and where we could provide assistance to these kids where they were already shining, and we're really looking at doing the same thing for the fourth marking period because we just feel like it's a lot more personalized. Our current report card really looks at things very academically and not this is an opportunity for a more global conversation about each student.
And that's
as
why
an
it's
individual.
important to have that one-on-one conversation. So
Absolutely.
That's great. So we try to learn from experiences in life, and this has been a big experience for school systems. Going forward, how does it look for elementary? Are we looking at maybe implementing Google Classroom, standardizing that for elementary students? I think that's something that we're looking at.
I think we definitely need to. We were taking it through a progression, and that's why the third and fourth graders were a little more familiar with the Google Classroom. But I think now that the teachers have the comfort level right out of the gate, we need to regularly in our classrooms utilize the Google Classroom so that should anything like this happen again, there's no need for the transition to happen. They're ready to just learn.
Right. And it will also enhance learning the regular daily instruction as well. So I'm trying to look at positives from this. Right?
Absolutely.
So, although it's very difficult too, but.
And I think sometimes I think the learning curve is greater for the adults than the students. They're very innate with the digital learning. You know,
Right.
Once they get in there, they're not afraid to play with things the way we are.
Right. We just finished speaking with Michelle Amos, the supervisor of instruction K-6. And that instruction model looks very different in this pandemic virtual setting than 7 to 12. Tell us about what does 7 to 12 virtual instruction look like right now?
Well, 7 to 12 had some advantages and some disadvantages going into this whole situation. Our high school was a one-to-one program where the students had already brought home Chromebooks every night, but our middle schoolers had Chromebooks within all their own classrooms. So we made a very quick decision, as a lot of people had to make quick decisions, to allow the middle schoolers to bring their Chromebooks home with them on actually the very last day of school that we were in session here. So the middle school has been utilizing what they've always utilized, which is the Google Classroom model. It's the way that they're communicating with their students and organizing their classes. The high school model, which we've now used for many years, was using an online platform called Canvas, which is our student learning platform that all of the colleges actually in all of the state of New Jersey use. We adopted it some years ago. It's very interactive. It allows students to organize their classes. It allows teachers to communicate with their students. And it's a model that we've used for a long time. We just didn't know that we were going to exclusively use it because we were sent home during this health-related closure.
So the transition was much easier for secondary than elementary, for sure.
It was easier from the perspective that we could communicate with the 7 to 12 students where we may have struggled a little bit in the beginning to communicate with our younger students. We've straightened a lot of that out with them, but they had a system and a routine that we could adapt.
Are teachers doing FaceTime lessons or using some kind of video conferencing?
Teaching is individual, and they're doing a lot of different things, but many of them are taping lessons. They're posting them either in Canvas or in Google Classroom. They hold office hours every week. They do Google Hangouts every week. Students don't have to attend, but many of them do. They look for extra help. They look for just to see a friendly face. But all of our staff are making those personal connections, which whether you're in school or you're doing remote learning, those are the most important things that we have.
And I think that's important to make those connections, especially during this time of isolation.
During any time, but definitely during this time of having to stay home and possibly just seeing your family members, and that's
Right.
about it.
Does this change education going forward for Lacey? I mean, does this present to us an opportunity to expand virtual instruction?
You know, I always hesitate to pat ourselves on the back, but we were already doing that. We had expanded the bounds by introducing a one-to-one program, by introducing online learning platforms such as Canvas and Google Classroom many years ago. It wasn't new to us. The game changer part, it allows us to be very flexible. It allows us to continue instruction during times of crisis. It allows us to continue instruction when students may have to stay home for other issues. but it really allows us to continue our core mission of educating these students no matter where we're located.
And I know we're trying to be flexible and accommodating to student individual needs, especially with regard to homework, assignments, and testing, right? Assessments.
Yeah, we've modified our assessments. We've modified our homework. We've really been cognizant of individual needs of individual homes. You know, not every house is the same, and we understood that right from the get-go. That's why we took a very measured approach to. We started slow, got a little bit faster, made accommodations at grading time, and we're going to continue to do that right through the fourth quarter, and hopefully finish the year on a high note.
An important component to instruction are special services. And right now we're going to take a look at the challenges that the Special Services Department faced with Mallory Kukovsky and Joe Bond. Okay, as we continue to talk about the challenges for instruction, we know that there was great challenges for special services, especially in pre-K. What were some of those challenges that you faced and the teachers faced?
Sure. Well, initially, we had to think about the children are very small. They're only 3 or 4 years old, and they don't necessarily use Chromebooks or Google Classroom on a regular basis. So we needed to find a platform that was going to be parent-friendly as well as child-friendly. So our teachers were lucky enough to find something called Seesaw, which right now during COVID-19 is a free online platform that the teachers can use. Very similar to something like a Facebook where you can post things, like things, make comments, and the teachers were able to add multiple teachers to the classroom. So they could also add the paraprofessionals, who are other adults that the preschool students are very familiar with, that can make comments, give feedback, very, very positive format for the students.
And teachers made some personal connections with kids, video?
Yes, absolutely. So especially as we headed into what I referred to as phase 2, where we knew that this was going to go beyond April 20th, the teachers really started to take it upon themselves to make videos of different aspects of their circle time or reading stories. They gave some of the parents some activities that they could do at home to foster some social skills, with their siblings and things like that. We also moved into Google meets that the parents could meet with the parents and the students, their friends. The other night, the case managers were able to put together a bedtime story for the preschoolers. So, they met at 7 o'clock at night. They had their teddy bears and their pajamas on. They read a little story together, and they were just so excited to see their friends and even their case managers, who were very involved in the classroom. So it was a nice a little activity. One of the other teachers does every Friday. She does a freeze dance for her preschoolers. 15 minutes just on the computer,
right.
And they do a little activity together, and I think the social piece was just as important for preschool as the academics.
Absolutely. So many of those strategies that you just talked about that were implemented in preschool, they were as well implemented in K to 6.
Yes,
correct?
Absolutely. Again, prior to us going on spring break, a lot of it, we were looking and we were hopeful that we were going to come back. And a big thing that we implemented for phase 2 was that we needed the teachers to start to have some kind of video interaction, whether it was live or taped. We really felt that the students needed to start to have some of that instruction back in their life. And some of the teachers were great. They've actually broken it down into their centers or their small groups like they typically would do in a classroom. So if a child was using a specific reading program, such as Edmark or Read 180 or Wilson, they've been now able to meet with those teachers and kind of continue those programming, whether it's small group or all together. A lot of the paraprofessionals have also started to join the Google Meets, and they've been able to facilitate with the teachers just like they would normally do in a classroom, just a check-in, not doing instruction, but making sure the students are able to do the work independently. The parents, this is all new to them as well, so it's nice to have that daily check-in.
And the teachers have been giving parental support through phone and email?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, whether they're meeting via Google Meets or they're making individual phone calls, they've definitely been doing that. For some of our, self-contained programs, they do something called applied behavior analysis, which is really a skill that most teachers don't have, and never mind the parents. So initially, we had the teachers actually teaching the parents what ABA was, and then specifically coming up with lesson plans that they could implement with their students with those directives in there that the parents really were probably very unfamiliar with initially.
So it actually was always trying to find positives, right, in any kind of situation. So that's kind of a positive that parents had to learn some of this.
Absolutely. I think they hear the language, but they didn't necessarily know what was behind it. We're talking about MANS and TACs for some of our autistic students, and the parents know that they're important, but they may not have known what they were. So the teachers really took it upon themselves to kind of do a tutorial, and then knowing the individual motivators for those special ed students, they kind of gave the parents different ways that they could elicit those type of skills with their students.
And moving forward, hopefully we learn from this pandemic, and we can implement some of these virtual learning strategies that you just talked about into the future.
Yeah, I think a big part of what we're moving forward for prior to even the pandemic was we really wanted the parents more involved in our self-contained programs for a learning opportunity for themselves. So I think that this was a kind of a taste of it for them, and we're hoping that for the upcoming school year we will be able to have parents coming into our programming. I know some of them struggle at home with basic things like feeding or setting up a routine, and we would like them to be coming into our classrooms and having the teachers teach them what we do here, because a lot of them don't always get those same skills at home. So we're hoping that could be part of our plan for the future.
So as we continue to talk about special service implementation during the COVID-19 shutdown, what does it look like for secondary grades, 7 through 12?
Sure. So at the high school, in our in-class resource, our pull-out resource, LLD classrooms, they're already implementing the online learning system, the Canvas system. So they just took that into the virtual realm, still modifying, accommodating assignments to specific to the IEPs, whether it's shortening the length of assignments, extending due dates, offering one-to-one check-ins through video, Google Meet, things like that. At the middle school level, they're up and running on Google Classroom on that. It's very similar to the gen ed classrooms in that aspect of the curriculum.
Now, I know with special services we have annual reviews. How has the child study team been functioning in this virtual world?
Sure. Yeah, so that's the beauty of technology. From day one, it was a seamless transition. Our case managers, child study team have been conducting IEP meetings virtually, meeting all their deadlines. We're doing it through Google Meet, whether it's video conference or audio through phone conferences, as long as the parents are okay with it, and most of them have been. We've been having those conversations. The teachers are involved, the related service providers are involved. We're planning for next year as we normally would, just in a virtual environment.
And I know one of the major important factors of this shutdown, if you will, is the self-isolation, that we need to reach out and connect with people. How has our counseling department been doing that for students?
Yeah, and that was one of the concerns as we knew we were going to shut down. Our school social workers and psychologists came to me and they were concerned of what does this look like when we shut down and we don't have that constant connection with some of our at-risk population. So we put some resources and supports into a place that are on our website, and all of our child study team, case managers, they know their caseload and they're reaching out. They're trying to engage their students as much as possible, offering support, guidance, encouragement, whatever that may look like.
So we're reaching out to students, and counselors are making that extra effort to touch base with parents as well.
Absolutely.
To support them, because they need to be provided support during this time.
Sure, and we're in constant contact with building administration, and it's been a very collaborative effort in terms of reaching our population and making sure they're supported on all aspects of where we're at.
What was in the initial steps, what was the biggest challenge that the Special Services Department faced?
So from the Special Services perspective, we're regulated by law and by code, and going into a virtual environment, there are a lot of unknowns, and the state Department of Education, the U.S. Department of Education, were giving us guidance daily. There was a lot of times I would log off my email in the afternoon and wake up in the next morning and things have changed in that time that I was sleeping. So it was a lot of planning, revising, brainstorming, discussions with our county counterparts, and really just trying to do the best we can with the information that we had.
And I think that's an important point to make, that all school systems and school districts did the best we could with the information that we were giving, which at times, as you just indicated, was very limited.
Absolutely, and we're really lucky in Ocean County here. We have a great support system. The other directors within the county, we talk on a regular basis. We bounce ideas off of each other. We're all in the same boat, and we're all in it together, and we've been really supportive.
Does this experience of this pandemic change the way we look at special services going forward? Will we implement new systems because of this experience?
Sure, I think it breaks that barrier of what we can accomplish through technology. I think it opens up a lot of extra support that we can provide our students, and we're seeing it right now. So when we do get to return to our schools, I think what we're able to do now through technology and the platforms that we've been implemented just makes it even better when we're in person, and then we have that extra layer on top of it.
Education in the 21st century really leans on the use of technology. And during this time, how would we provide technology to all students? The challenge was unsurmountable. Right now, we're going to talk to the head of the technology department for Lacey Township Public Schools, Jason England. So working in this virtual paradigm of instruction and everything else in education during this pandemic shutdown, technology is vital. We can't do it without technology. What were some of the challenges that the tech department faced in the initial stages?
I think the biggest challenge we faced was trying to help everybody and not being there in person to help them. Typically, whether it's a student, faculty member, when somebody has an issue, they're able to put in a ticket, put out an email, somebody will respond, and then they're able to show us what their problem is. In this case, we're doing the best we can, communicating through email, communicating over the phone, communicating through Google Meets and other platforms, and trying the best we possibly can to try and keep them up and running.
Right. So in the initial stages, we had to get devices out, right, to kids, in kids' hands.
Well, I mean, the high school is already set. The high school, all of the kids were already taking their Chromebooks home. The middle school in Mill Pond, they all have their own Chromebooks, and they were able to take them home right prior to the school closing. And then we opened it up to K-4, the 3 elementary schools. A little bit later on, when we found out that this closing was going to last long term, anybody who needs anything was able to email teacher, principal, and was able to be provided a device.
And we had a big distribution day where parents came to pick up devices, and that was well organized, and it went off very well.
Big distribution day, and then we had it's ongoing. It's ongoing. I mean, people have made trips to people's houses. We have Chromebook swaps. It seems to be once a week where people can come in, and if they have a problem with their technology, they can exchange it for a working device. It's important to keep everybody up and running, so that technology allows them to continue their instruction and not be a hindrance.
Are there some lessons that we can learn through this experience for the technology department moving forward?
I think the biggest lesson is that it's not a nice to have luxury item anymore. It's vital. It's vital to the day-to-day operations. As young as our kindergartners and preschoolers, we need to have access, and we need to have devices, and be ready for anything.
And hopefully districts and government will help schools be able to move forward in that direction.
Absolutely. I mean, this is the proving ground, right? This was not expected prior to this pandemic. This was not an option for school districts to do in New Jersey. There's been chatter throughout the years about potentially having kids work from home during a snow day as opposed to actually having the day off. It was something that's never been allowed before. But due to this pandemic, I think it's proven that technology is a viable option. Is it a replacement for in-person instruction? No, and I don't think it ever will be. But you are able to provide relevant, meaningful instruction to children, and staff can connect and communicate with those students and families pretty darn well.
Well, we certainly have learned a lot about the implementation of technological devices and applications such as Google Meets.
Oh yeah.
And other districts have used Zoom and other applications to communicate and implement and deliver instruction. So we have learned a lot through this.
We've learned a lot, and the collaboration amongst administrators and teachers in this district alone has really helped us provide what it turns out to be meaningful and well thought out applications to students and teachers, to make any sort of hiccups that might show up non-existent. We didn't jump right away to try and turn everything on that we possibly could. We didn't jump on trying to use platforms that maybe weren't proven or trusted in the educational realm at that point in time. We use what we have in place. We take full advantage of the features that maybe not everybody was aware of when this started, and we roll out things as necessary to allow students to continue with their instruction.
I think it's a great point that you make, because with every decision, there's consequences. And many people right in the beginning may not think about those consequences, and it may say, oh, well, let's use this, let's use that. But there's a domino effect in that. And so we did have to make tough choices and think things through before we just opened up the floodgates.
Absolutely. Another good example of that would be email for students at Mill Pond or 5-6 school. Email was not turned on for them throughout this school year and in years past. But due to the feedback from families and students and teachers in collaboration with the building administrators, we were able to turn that on so the students can connect with their teachers and communicate with them more directly.
And like I said earlier, this is an important time, and I'm always trying in every interview that we're conducting to look for some positive to come out of a negative. And I think you just talked about a positive, that we're looking at new ways to allow students to use technology in their daily instructional lives.
Absolutely. Like I said before, it's become vital. Not too many years ago, having a couple computer labs in a school, having a couple Chromebook carts, it was nice to have. It enriched instruction. But due to this, I think it proves the point that it's not just a luxury item. It's a necessity. It's a necessity for all students and staff to have that, the ability to pivot, within a couple days and transfer all instruction to something that has never been done before. I mean, it's pretty remarkable.
Under state and federal guidelines, there was an expectation and a mandate that selected food services would continue. So now we're going to talk about those challenges with Ed Hannon, Director of Transportation, and Crystal DeCaro, Director of Food Services. So during this pandemic shutdown, one of the mandates that the state and federal government had was to continue meal services. We had to figure that out. So what were some of the challenges that the food service department faced in conducting that?
We actually faced a lot of challenges, especially trying to get the staff to come in and feel comfortable and safe in preparing the meals, and actually having all of the meals set up in a space that we can make sure everyone's healthy, they're following all the protocols that would be required, they're having PPE or safe protective masks on, as well as their gloves, making sure that they're guarded, and making sure that we can provide these meals in a safe environment.
So food service workers were coming in every day and making food, right?
They were.
For delivery.
Yes, they were.
And what about the nutritional guidelines? Were we continuing to keep those up?
Absolutely, especially because we are required to still continue and making sure that we have our fully compliant, nutritious meals. But we did come into some challenges in making sure that all of those meals would actually be delivered with those products, and we had some shortages with companies, but we were able to substitute it so that we were still making sure all of the kids had nutritious, fully compliant meals.
Right, so it's one thing to make the meals, but it's another thing to actually deliver them to the people that have to get them. So that's where transportation department came in. What were some of the challenges that we faced in the transportation department?
Well, when we get back into the middle of March, when the COVID-19 dilemma started for us, we all met with the upper administration and food service and decided that we needed to develop some sort of a system to deliver these meals to their correct students at home, their breakfast and their lunch meals. So with that, we had to make routes up. We had to be in concert with the food director on who to receive these meals. We had to make contact with the different parents and advise them of the time that we would be there. to deliver these meals. And all in all, we had to also, as Crystal said, we had to make sure that our delivery was as sanitary as possible, that our buses routinely each night was disinfected. We have a disinfectant that was provided by our facilities manager to us, and with that we've been safe to do this. We worked out the little problems here and there, and I think all in all the parents have been very, very grateful. And I myself do some deliveries on occasion, and they all respond with a very pleasing thank you, and they do appreciate the service that we are providing.
Because in the beginning we ran multiple routes, but then as this continued, it evolved, and we transitioned into different delivery systems. We refined it so that we had less routes,
That
right?
is correct. That is correct. Of course, it being a new process for all of us, we had continuous meetings with the upper administration and refined our delivery tactics to be as efficient as possible and to eliminate whatever exposure, unnecessary exposure, as was also possible.
And I think it's important just to thank the staff, the food service staff and the transportation staff that continue to work and provide these essential services for our community. I think they're wonderful.
They are. They're incredible. They've worked extremely hard throughout all of this. They haven't hesitated to make sure that everyone that needs a meal is provided a meal, and making sure that everything is done in a safe and effective manner.
Many parents were concerned initially about the cleaning of the schools. How would we make them safe for students and staff? Now we're going to speak with the head of facilities, Marco Oliveira. In the beginning of the COVID shutdown, I know many people were concerned, parents and staff, about the cleanliness of the buildings. What were some of the things that the facilities department were doing to make sure that facilities were cleaned properly?
So basically, in the beginning of this whole pandemic at Lacey Township School District, what I did is actually got together with all my lead custodians, and then we had safety meetings with all of our custodial staff. I had safety meetings with our ground staff, and I also had safety meetings with our maintenance staff, just to let them know the proper protocol on wearing the type of PPE, which would be from gloves to masks to eyes, maintaining social distancing, 6 feet apart from each other. I've come through many different types of backgrounds where I've used a lot of different types of cleaning products throughout different districts. I know exactly what we needed to be applicable at Lacey Township, so I reached out to some of our vendors, got the right type of chemical cleaning instructions and protocols that our people, our custodial staff, were to follow in order to get us to where we are today.
Great. So the buildings are clean as we are right now.
Yes.
Currently we're filming in the month of May, toward the end of May. So the buildings have been cleaned. You have rotating staff going in to do continued cleaning.
Yes, so right now we had, in the beginning we had modified shift staff. So we would have custodians come in at a 2-hour interval per shift. So it would be a 2-hour custodial interview coming in from let's just say 7 o'clock in the morning to about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 2-hour shifts, maintaining the boilers, because at that time the boilers were still in operation. So we were making sure that the boilers were still accommodating to the building and its contents. And then I actually changed over the shifts for our custodial staff and had them come back at a 4-hour rotation for our custodial staff, so we can do a little bit more thorough cleaning throughout the district and getting also prepared for our summer cleaning program.
Sure, and because whether people realize it or not, we have to change all the classrooms, empty the furniture out of classrooms, clean, wax the floors. I mean, it's a big project that we have to do over the summer to get ready for September. What about projects? I know I see that the grounds look beautiful, so outside maintenance crews are working. They're working on projects?
Outside maintenance crews basically are maintaining. They also went under modified duty. So basically about 2.5 weeks ago, we brought all of our grounds maintenance personnel back to their regular 5-day week 8-hour rotation days. So as you see around the campus, and some of the attributes that my ground staff has done is we've brought up to where we used to be and where I want the township and I want our school district to be. Some of the projects that we have ongoing throughout these next few weeks and the next few months are going to be from doing anything from power washing some of the buildings, the exterior part of the buildings, making sure that our irrigation system is good to go so we have our fields nice and green for when the kids hopefully do come back soon. They can enjoy all the accommodations that Lacey provides to us.
I know we keep trying to find silver linings or positives to this whole tragedy of this pandemic. I guess this time provides an opportunity for the facilities department to do small projects around the district that you may not have had the time to really do during the day because classes and instruction were being conducted.
So with our grounds department, we basically have some of our grounds guys maintaining a lot of the softball dugout areas, making sure that gets recoated, repainted, doing any kind of roof work to our dugout areas, going into our field houses, doing some of the field houses, making sure that's ready to go. We're actually going to be starting a program soon where we're going to be going through all of the irrigation system, making sure that the irrigation system is blown out so all of the upcoming water that's coming from our well system at the school district is coming in, and making sure that all those timers are set so we have all the irrigation set on that side. Besides that, coming into the district and also making sure that if there's any certain buildings that need to be repainted or any kind of overhangs that need to be recoated, that's also taken care of on just the grounds end.
Sure.
On a lot of things on the maintenance side, this is a great opportunity for our maintenance department to do a lot of things that typically we're a little bit restricted on during the days that the students, faculty, and staff would be inside the building. So it's given me an opportunity, it's given our staff an opportunity to get a lot of those things accomplished in the district.
And moving forward to a return and a reopening of the school, I'm sure you've been talking to your department about maintaining a new cleaning regime or protocols and implementing that, so that would put some of the anxiety upon that return at ease for people.
Absolutely. One of our prime vendors called Atra, they're actually going to be doing training seminars in the next couple of weeks where I'm going to be getting all my head custodial staff and all my custodians, and we're going to look at a different way of deep cleaning and doing some form of touchless cleaning throughout the district. So just to make sure that when our students do return back to the district, they feel safe, our parents feel safe and comfortable that our returning faculty, staff, and students have a viable area to come back into and feel safe at all times.
Many people may not realize this, but education is a business. Bills have to be paid, vendors have to be paid, and we have to create a budget for the following school year. Right now, we're going to discuss those challenges with Business Administrator Pat DeGeorge. So as we discuss all the challenges that the district face, many people kind of forget that a school district is a business. When we have to run a business, there's a payroll, there's payments that need to be made. What challenges did the district face within the business department when we did the COVID-19 shutdown?
Right, that's a great question, Steve. On the finance and operations side, as you know, we have the business office, which processes payroll and makes payments to our vendors. We have the facilities department, who takes care of our buildings and our grounds. Transportation, who is supposed to get our kids from point A to point B every day. And our food services, who really works pretty hard every day to provide nutritious meals to our students. So we got together, all of us, the department managers and yourself, and we figured it out. We asked ourselves, what are our principal goals day after day, week after week, month after month? And how do we now deliver those services? How do we make good on what we're supposed to be providing to our students and our staff through the lens of COVID-19? And we figured it out because we have an amazing staff of managers that report up to senior leadership in our district, and Mr. Oliveira on the facilities department is outstanding. Mr. Hannon's been here a long time, and he's the go-to guy for transportation. Ms. DeCaro hasn't been here all that long, but she's super when it comes to doing the right thing for kids. And Mrs. Sylvia, who is our assistant business administrator, she really runs a very tight ship. So we all got together and we figured it out. And we're able to provide the services to our kids and to our staff.
So we have employees in our business office still going in and,
Sure.
and conducting the business that they have to conduct.
Right. Everything is in response to or viewed through the prism of what the governor tells us. We don't have any more people in the building than we were allowed to have. We practice proper social distancing every day. We rotate our staff through the buildings to make sure that we have coverage, but that we stay far enough apart so we don't risk infecting one another if someone happens to be sick among us. So yeah, it's same thing with food services. Facility staff is now back a little bit more than they were when this all began, but the job is getting done, and I have to take my hat off to all the managers that work in our district. Outstanding response, and again, all while keeping foremost in our minds the safety and security of our students and our staff.
Do you think there's any key lessons that we can walk away with based upon going through this experience?
That's a great question. Very insightful. I think yes. If we ever for a moment took for granted what we do and who we do it for and how we do it or how easy you think it might be, it's not the case. It's critical. It's a paramount for us to make sure that we deliver what we need to deliver our students and our staff. And if we ever took it for granted, we certainly don't do it anymore.
I think that's a very important point that you just made, because I think this time, and I'm getting away from the education and business perspective for just a moment, but I think this time that people have had to be home and to take and to be with their families, they have seen a lot of things that maybe they took for granted that maybe they're appreciating now in life, and we need to refocus maybe ultimately on those things that we do sometimes take for granted.
That's a beautiful thing. My wife and my two little dogs and we've grown closer over these past 9 weeks.
Right.
And it just makes you sit back and reprioritize your life and say, you know what, it is important. What you and I do, absolutely critical. But there is a value to that. And if we're not stopping to reevaluate and certainly appreciate our families and our support systems, we're not. I have to give proper credit to my elder Schnauzer, Jack, who is very upset because he's become my office mate at the house every single day. He and I go to work, he stays there all day, and when I'm done, he's done. And he's very loyal, and he really has gotten used to having Dad at home every day.
You know, it's interesting because when we closed the schools and we made that decision, and you and I were debating that for hours a day.
Yeah.
Not debating, but just trying to think about how we're going to do it.
Sure.
And we did it for the health and safety of students.
Yep.
But you know, in the closure, in and of itself, there's a health component that people are appreciating things that maybe they didn't appreciate before. And I think that's a great point to make.
Yeah, it is. And I'm glad that you alluded to the time when this all first began, when we all got together on that. Remember that first Saturday, we were all in the board office conference room with Mr. England, our technology director, and Mr. Hannon, Ms. DeCaro, Mr. Oliveira, all the people who were kind of coming to the table to try to figure it out. In the very inception of the whole thing.
With not that much direction
with
from
almost zero, really.
The state or any.
In fact, I think they were asking us.
Yeah.
And I want to take an opportunity before I forget to do two things. First, to thank the Board of Education and Dr. Clark, our superintendent, for their unwavering support and leadership throughout this time. Whatever we're trying to figure out, they've always supported. They never questioned us, and I really appreciate that from where I sit. And second, and even more important perhaps, to you and your instructional leadership team. You figured it out. You put together something that people have only talked about a concept of remote learning. I didn't even know what that was, but in no time, what should have taken months, if not years, you and your staff put it together, and through technology, we're able to get it done. I take my hat off to you, sir, because that was outstanding.
Well, thank you, and I take my hat off to the teachers that
Yep.
are implementing it. They're doing an unbelievable job, and we've all pulled together as a team, which I think is a testament to the quality of service that Lacey Township provides. The totality of one's educational experience happens at the high school. So right now, we're going to talk to the high school principal, Greg Brandis. Okay, the high school, where the total educational experience of our students culminates. What was that like? What challenges did you have when we began the shutdown?
Ultimately, it was a Friday when we ended up shutting down the building. We didn't know for how long. One of the most important things I believe that we did was we told all our students and staff to grab everything they possibly could out of their lockers, out of their gym lockers, teachers out of their desks, for any materials that they may need for remote learning.
It's a big undertaking.
It was. We extended buses. We allowed a little extra time for students to get out of class because it was immediate, and we wanted to ensure that students didn't have to return back into the building.
I know that we're giving a lot of options for our high school students with assessments at the end of the year. I spoke to Mr. Zielinski about that. So that's a good thing, that we're giving students a voice.
Yeah, we're giving them options, sure, at the end.
How has the feedback been with parents?
Probably the best thing is we haven't had many complaints at all. Nothing that has come across my desk, because I believe our teachers, our administrators, and supervisors have been doing a remarkable job with allowing these options to take place during this remote learning.
Now, a couple of weeks ago, you did something very exciting, a tour. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure, we did a celebration tour for the class of 2020. It was certainly not a culminating event, but a beginning event to celebrate the class of 2020. We got a banner on a bus, 25 by 6 feet in size, put it on a bus. We had a caravan, emergency vehicles to follow that bus, along with administration and central administration and board members. And we were able to hit all 266 seniors' houses in one day. It took 12 hours, but to see the remarkable impact on every senior's social emotional being was quite remarkable. They were smiling. One of the best parts about it was their neighbors were coming out to celebrate them. Along while we were driving through roads where maybe there wasn't a senior, there might have been an elderly person cheering us on, and even a parent with little kids. So it was most rewarding for us, but certainly most memorable day for our senior class.
Now, everybody, there was signs that you put on their lawn.
Class of 2020, we reminded them to remain Lion Strong. We made them t-shirts and promotional bags to try to keep their spirits lifted.
And that really did lift up people's spirits.
I really believe we did. The feedback we got from parents was overwhelming with joy. There were some tears at some houses that we visited, and I really think is rejuvenating for some students who are maybe becoming a little disengaged.
Now, I know this is a big question. It's, senior, so many exciting things happen in the life of a senior, a prom, a graduation ceremony. I mean, unfortunately, we are confined by state and federal mandates. What does graduation potentially look like going forward? And I know that's a tough question because it changes actually almost daily.
Certainly does, yes. Like you said, we are going to follow the guidelines laid out by the governor and from the county office. But we have a very creative team, just like the celebrity tour. I believe with the support of the Board of Education, our superintendent, Dr. Clark, and like I said, our creative administrative team and teachers, we're going to pull off something that's going to be remarkable and memorable for the senior class of 2020. And that, that's my number one goal right now.
That's great. And is there a takeaway from all this for us, for the high school, moving forward? Something that we can take a positive out of a negative?
Well, in the beginning of the year, I tell the seniors, don't wish time away. Cherish every moment of your senior year. And everywhere there's seniors sometimes check out a little bit early. And at this point in time, they're at home not being able to do their last spring sport, last spring concert, and you know, to really cherish those moments that they have in school, because now they're wishing that they could come back. So for the students that come after them, to cherish every moment of high school, because you know, you won't get that time back.
It's interesting you say that, because earlier I spoke to Mr. DeGeorge, the business administrator, and we kind of spoke about people seeing things that we may have taken for granted in the past because of the busyness, right, of our lives and schedules. But now we've pulled all that back, and we start to see things that we really appreciate as human beings, family, our health,
our friends, and really the relationships, I think, are missing, and interactions between students and teachers and admin. Being able to see one another on a daily basis is really what the high school is about, and that's where connections are made. Yes, we're doing that on remote learning. Our guidance department and our child study team are doing an amazing job supporting our students who are maybe being disengaged, but it's not the same, and I know the administration, staff, and students are missing that one-to-one interaction.
And we're looking forward to a graduation. We're looking forward
yes,
to
we
a
are.
graduation.
We are. We will have a graduation at some point. We'll be having a graduation for the class of 2020.
Great. Now we're going to speak with Dr. Vanessa Clark, the superintendent for Lacey Township Public Schools. So, during this episode, we've spoken to many of the department heads to talk about the challenges that we faced as a district going into this virtual instructional model and really school model. What does our re-entry plan look like and reopening of schools?
Yeah, so it's right now challenging because we're still waiting for a lot of direction from Governor Murphy as it relates to Executive Order 107. That being everything related to social distancing and a variety of other things. But we have begun planning our re-entry plan, and it has a lot of components to it. And one of those being, you know, what is it that we're going to have to purchase for the students, for the staff, for our facilities? And there's still a lot of unknowns, but it's never too late, you know, to start planning, and the time to do that is now.
I know with everything I've been trying to touch on with all the department people in the administration, what are some positives, if any, that we could take away from this experience moving forward, and how do we implement them in a new paradigm of education? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a great word, paradigm. And I've said this a couple of times in my communications to our parents that, you know, when we think about remote learning or even a hybrid where we're doing partial remote learning and, you know, the traditional brick and mortar, that takes years of implementation and planning and implementation, I should say. And I know this because I taught a hybrid master's level course for a local university, and it wasn't just something that I stepped into in 2 days. And so I think a takeaway for us is that, you know, we did the impossible, we got it done. I think we did it well. But I think our teachers are in a much better place, our administrators are in a better place from an instructional standpoint. And I think that the paradigm is that we are now prepared to implement a hybrid program if that's the direction that we decide to go in, or if we ever had to do it on a dime like we did for this pandemic.
Sure. Because part of this, to me, when I'm reflecting about this, we have to, or it gives us the opportunity to kind of rethink education and the way it's implemented. What I'm finding as well through this in my discussions with the other administrators is that parents have become more knowledgeable, and I think that's a good thing. And I have to give a lot of credit to parents. I know you do. Maybe you could speak about that the parents really stepped up to help us as a school district and their child. But they're learning a lot of things about education and instruction that are really beneficial.
Absolutely. I don't think any parent was prepared to provide instruction to their students. And I think that it has given them perspective on what goes on in the classroom on a day-to-day basis. But, you know, for some parents it was easier than it was for others, because some parents are our frontline workers, and so they found themselves having to go to work every day while their children were at home. And you know, I would submit that delivering instruction in kindergarten is going to be far different than it is delivering it in, you know, ninth grade, where we're talking about, you know, biology and chemistry and things like that. So I think that our parents have been amazing. I know it has been more challenging for some than others, but we appreciate their support, and I think that it has given us the opportunity to form this amazing partnership.
Yeah, I agree. So closing the year out, it's going to be very different, obviously, and I'm going to speak with the principal of the high school, Mr. Brandis, about what does that look like for our seniors. And again, the reopening, as you mentioned a moment ago, we don't really know. And I guess that creates a lot of anxiety, the unknown.
Yeah, it does. And you know, I really do feel for the class of 2020, we have done everything that we possibly can to make them feel special. They are special. But again, it's the unknowns, it's the information that changes daily. From Governor Murphy, it's the information that changes from the State Department of Education. And we know what we want to do, but wanting to do something and actually being able to do it are two entirely different things.
Well, as it came out in some of our earlier discussions, this is uncharted waters, and in the beginning we had no guidance at all. This was a lot of on our own. So I think there's a lot of good takeaways. I think we've grown as a school district. I think you would agree, and as a community. Is there any last things you'd like to share with the community?
No, I'm just going to piggyback on what you said. I think that we have grown as a school district, as a community. You know, our district, our town, our community has always done the unimaginable. We've always come together in times of need. You know, during 9/11. You know, when we've had some tragic news regarding students or staff members, when we needed our staff to jump in and help out with the food bank, this community has always gone above and beyond. And I think that in this situation, they have done the same. So I look forward to getting back to our classrooms. I know that our students do too. And I know that the guidance is going to give us the direction that we need to get us to where we need to be.
As we move through this pandemic, you could see that a school district needs to be fluid. We need to change and evolve and adapt to the challenges that we face. But one thing I do know, based upon all the people that we've spoken to and the parents I've spoken to, that whatever challenges we face, we can overcome them together.